America is the richest and most powerful country in history. But America's rise to number one was actually quite unexpected. In fact, most of North America was ignored for more than 100 years after it was discovered. Here's a map that was made right before Christopher Columbus set sail. The Vikings, they claimed they'd found an island somewhere over here. But no one realized it was an entire continent. So Columbus believed he could find a trade route to Asia by sailing west. Instead, he found some islands in the Caribbean. He didn't discover the spices he was dreaming of, but he still believed he was close to India. So he called the natives Indians, picked up some treasures, and hurried back to Spain. "Your Majesties, I've just returned from Asia." "Wonderful, Columbus. Where are the spices?" "Well, no spices yet, but they've got gold, lots and lots of gold." "Now we're talking. Go back, bring more gold, and don't forget, make them Christians." A few years before Columbus claimed the West Indies for Spain, the Portuguese had figured out that they could reach Asia by sailing around Africa. So Spain and Portugal drew a line right down the middle of the map. Everything on this side would belong to Portugal, everything on that side to Spain. The Portuguese built a vast trading empire in Asia. The Spanish, they got busy conquering their half of the world. And where was the gold and silver? South America. That's where the Spanish went. They even sent an expedition into North America in 1539, but no gold, no silver. So they mostly ignored all those useless lands up north. Meanwhile, the English sent an explorer to North America 16 years before the Spanish even discovered Florida. But then they waited almost 100 years before trying again. England's first colony was Roanoke, North Carolina, in 1585. But that same year, England was busy fighting Spain, and the colony mysteriously vanished. So they tried again. Jamestown. This time, it worked. Soon after, the Pilgrims arrived in Plymouth. Strict Christians, no gambling, no Christmas celebrations. And soon, ship after ship after ship brought people to America. The East Coast was filling up with British colonies. Meanwhile, the French claimed all the land in the middle of North America. By 1754, it was time for war. France had about 60,000 colonists. They teamed up with native tribes. That's why it's called the French and Indian War. The British colonies? Over 1 million people. They too had native allies. Who do you think won? That's right, the British. At the same time, war raged in Europe. When it ended, the map was redrawn. France gave half of Louisiana to Spain just to keep it away from Britain. Then, after the war, the other half went to Britain too, and Canada. Now Britain had plenty of land in America, but it also had a problem: debt. "Hey, colonies, remember that expensive war we fought for you?" "Yeah, thanks." "Right. Now we're going to start collecting lots and lots of taxes to pay for it." "Wait, what? You never help us. We're always helping you. And how can you tax us if we don't even get a vote?" The colonists weren't happy. Disagreements turned to fights. Fights turned into revolution. On July 4th, 1776, the colonies declared independence. The United States of America was born. Right? Not quite. It would take 5 more years to actually win that war. When freedom was finally secured, another problem appeared: government. The 13 colonies had basically become 13 independent countries. The nation was failing, and fast. So the Founding Fathers wrote a brand new constitution, a federal government that actually worked. In 1789, George Washington became the first president, but the USA was still small. Spain controlled much of the land to the west. Then came Napoleon. He conquered Europe and wanted an empire in America. Through a deal, Louisiana was returned from Spain to France. The Americans grew nervous. They needed the Mississippi River. What if Napoleon shut it down? So they asked to buy New Orleans. Napoleon thought, I need money for my war with Britain, and if I sell Louisiana, the Americans will be our friends instead of Britons. And just like that, the Louisiana Purchase. $15 million. The USA doubled in size overnight. Good thing, too, America's population was doubling every 20 years. The average family had 7 children. All those kids needed land. So Americans moved west. Does anyone own this land? Of course not. Great, then it's mine. In 1819, the U.S. bought Florida from Spain. 2 years later, Mexico broke free from Spain. America had a new neighbor. Mexico's northern territories were sparsely populated, so they invited Americans to settle in Texas. But soon, settlers outnumbered Mexicans. Texas declared independence. Yee-haw! We want to join the USA! Do you have slaves? Yes, and we're proud of it. Sorry, we don't need more slave states. But in 1845, the USA changed its mind. Texas joined. Border disputes led to war with Mexico. America won, paid $15 million, and took the northern territories. Just 5 years later, they bought even more land for another $1 million. Meanwhile, Britain agreed to split Oregon along the 49th parallel. And now, in just 50 years, the United States stretched from sea to shining side. Expansion wasn't over. Islands in the Pacific, the Guano Act, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Philippines. But with growth came conflict, slavery. The North called it evil. The South depended on it. When Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860, the South seceded. Civil War. The bloodiest war in American history. The North won. Slavery was abolished. The Union survived. Soon after, Alaska was purchased from Russia. Hawaii was annexed. And after the Spanish-American War, the USA became a global power. With Teddy Roosevelt, the Navy grew into the second largest in the world. The Panama Canal was built, linking 2 oceans. And by 1914, America had become a true world power. Just as World War I began.